Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to the FIDE World Chess Championship match between the current world champion Ding Liren from China and the young talented prodigy, the challenger Gukesh Dommaraju from India. We're now in the round 11 of this epic chess event, and so far in the whole 10 rounds we have seen only 2 winning games, and the most interesting part is that we have seen actually now 7 consecutive draws in the FIDE World Chess Championship match, and the draws I think were simply too solid. We have seen 2 simplified games in which in many openings we have seen too many trades of pieces, too many simplifications, and then we have reached 2 drawish endgames. But I guarantee you now in the round 11 we had finally an explosion again, and I mentioned it before. It seems to me that the more aggressive games we have seen when Gukesh played with the white pieces, when Ding played with the white pieces, we have seen 2 solid draws. Let's see now what happened here. You see also great opening choice here by Gukesh Dommaraju, because he pulled off with the white pieces the so-called Blumenfeld gambit, but in the reverse way with the white pieces. So let's see actually what is the common Blumenfeld counter gambit when you played with the black pieces. Usually when white is opening with the move d4, we have knight to f6. This is not now the current game, but I wanted to show you the ideas about the Blumenfeld counter gambit with the black pieces. And after move c4, black is going into this aggressive line with the move b5. And the idea is, what we're trying to do here from black's perspective is, after something like d takes e6, f takes e6, and maybe d takes c4, to play sort of a gambit. You give up a pawn, but black is trying to have this very powerful center here with the black pieces. I think it's a decent compensation for the lost pawn in the early stage of the game, and I guarantee you many games have been also won with black in this particular line. Then we'll see a similar position, but of course with the white pieces here by Gukesh Dommaraju. So first of all, he opened with move knight to f3, and Ding's response was d5. We have c4 going into the reti opening, and now after move d4, what Ding accomplished is, of course, now so far a space advantage in the center of the board. But now Gukesh pulls off the aggressive b4, and this is already I would say a huge surprise. Usually you're trying to play the solid, I don't know, d3 stuff, or e3 challenging immediately this pawn. b4 is very aggressive, and now Ding has to already make a reaction, because the pawns are rolling here. White has gained so far a great expansion on the queen side. So for instance, if knight to f6 happens, if you play knight to f6 immediately, then white would go with g3, bishop to g2, d3, knight to d2 casting, and would have, I think, a great setup then with the possibility to push the pawns further. So that's why Ding, after move b4, immediately challenges the structure, plays also sort of a gambit, is hoping that here Gukesh takes, but actually b takes e5 would not be such a great idea here for white, because then after something like knight to c6 and d3 e5, you can maybe further protect this pawn. But now if you try even to hold on to this pawn on c5, then black could have here some kind of an attack. So white has to be also careful what you do. For instance, you try g3 g4, knight to h4, bishop to e7 can be played, or maybe you're trying knight to d2, then we can even play f5, and the position is simply static here. You cannot do so much on this side of the board, although you have an extra pawn with the white pieces. But now here black is taking over with this expansion on the king side. So that's why after c5, Gukesh plays now in this reversed Blumenfeld gambit way. He's hoping now Ding maybe to play this line, d takes e3, f takes e3, and then c takes b4, and now d4, and now we would have again a similar position like the previous one that we have discussed, but in a reversed way, again, in which white would have now a powerful central control, black would have an extra pawn, but this would be really a dynamic and aggressive game. And actually after the move e3 that Gukesh played, Ding lost now 40 minutes for the next move that he played, and actually he made a huge decision with the move knight to f6. And with this decision, I think he already showed that he doesn't want to complicate things too much by creating this unbalanced pawn structure. So that's why here Gukesh plays, of course, a3, keeps now the pawn structure healthy here on this side of the board, and has still this expansion on the queen side with the potential b5 move, maybe a4 later, and similar stuff. So of course black is not going to take now the pawn on b4, because after a takes b4, here white is much better, wouldn't have of course this idea to play g3, bishop to g2, or maybe d3, e4. But the most important thing here to say that pawns are rolling, and it's not so easy now to attack anymore the structure. So after move a3 that Gukesh played, many things have been played in chess history. For instance, knight to c6 is the most often choice. Also what has been played is now maybe here d takes e3 is also a particular line that can be played. Also a5 is pretty solid, but now Ding comes up now with the, I would say, the sixth, maybe even seventh choice by top engines. Every line now that black can play, I think, is perfectly fine. It's perfectly solid. It's not like black can make a mistake. But when you watch now the computer evaluations now, like I am, there are now 5 choices which are suggested by top engines. As I said, knight to c6, d takes e3, a5, g6, g5 is even here an option. Ding comes up now with an amazing, I would say, really a sharp theoretical novelty. He plays now an aggressive bishop to g4, and I really loved his choice, actually. The computer evaluation is not like jumping here in white's favor, but bishop to g4 is really interesting, because now this bishop is already creating some madness. The bishop is pinning the knight is controlling, of course, the d4 square, and that's why Gukesh releases now finally the pressure and plays now e takes d4. We have c takes d4, and now here we have the situation where white has now this 3 versus 2 pawn majority, but in order to somehow not allow this pawn majority to be useful for white, you have to somehow stop the progression of these pawns on the queen side. And after c takes d4, Ding play, Gukesh first of all challenges now here the bishop with h3. What should you do? If you play bishop to h5, if you don't react immediately, then I think white would have a huge expansion on both sides. White has already expansion on the queen side. Now after potential g4, white could have also expansion on the king side. So now you try bishop to g6, bishop to g2, e6, bishop to b2, knight to c6, and now you attack this one. We can of course then play maybe later d3 and similar stuff. And I think in this structure, white could have a great game here. You don't have to even play immediately b5. You can just play calm d3, knight to d2 controls of course the e4 square. And look at this, white has really huge space advantage on both of the sides. So that's why after move h3, Ding makes a decision and plays now bishop to f3. After queen to f3, the pawn on b7 is hanging, and white has now the bishop pair as an advantage, but black has now the possibility to create a static position. And Ding plays, I think, the next couple of moves really in a brilliant way. Look how positionally here Ding really great is. His positional knowledge is really amazing. He first of all plays the move c7, queen to c7, and now Gukesh, in order to somehow keep the bishop pair active, Gukesh should have gone maybe with the move c5, which is very tricky now to play. You have to be now beast really to calculate everything. But c5 is actually the suggested move because you're still keeping your light square bishop somehow in the game. And then after something like knight to c6, bishop to b5 can be played. Even if you get challenged with the move a5, you don't have to react. You can play bishop to a4, and after something like knight to d7, d3, you keep here the structure. Black can really never take on this side of the board because you cannot pick up the pawn on b4 because of this tactics, and you could lose the rook here, rook on the a file. Of course, black doesn't have to necessarily play the game like this. Black can go also with similar stuff like g6 into the game. But the most important thing here to notice is that finally the light square bishop is in the game. At least it's attacking somehow black's position. But after queen to c7 instead of c5, which could have let this bishop breathe, Gukesh played a calm, it is a normal idea, like you should play d3. It's not a big deal or something. It's not a mistake that Gukesh is doing, but c5 may be more progressive to play with the white pieces. And now after move d3, you see now Ding challenges now the structure here, this a3 b4 structure. If you don't react, you could even lose the rook here on the a file. So that's why Gukesh had to now advance the pawn, because bishop to b5, bishop to b2 is actually not working here. a5 was a huge tactical idea here by Ding, because if you play a takes b4, now a takes b4, rook to a1, bishop to a1, and now after move e5, believe me or not, the position is already lost here for white. You're trying maybe to play something like c5, maybe the move that we have discussed earlier. But now bishop to c5, look at this, b takes c5, and now queen to a5 wins now again the piece back, and I think this is a position that after a couple more moves white could even resign. So a5, really tricky idea. It's not allowing you here to play the move bishop to b2, which will be very useful, and which in the beginning makes perfect sense because you're attacking also the center. But Gukesh plays the correct b5. We have now knight from b2 d7, and you see now the positional brilliancy here by Ding. He has now prepared the square for the knight. Now he has a perfect blockade as a possibility, as a defensive method against this 3 versus 2 situation that we have discussed. So white has a slightly dominant position here when it comes to pawn, so 3 versus 2, but with the potential knight to c5 move, you're blocking everything out. g6, bishop to g7 can play it, or maybe e6, bishop to d6, but now the knights are very useful because they're really cementing the position in the center of the board. Here Gukesh continues with the move g3, knight to c5, attack against the pawn. We have now bishop to g2, and here I would say after move e5 and kingside castling, black should be even slightly better here because of the static position. The bishops are not so dangerous here. Once this rook gets out of this attack of the light square bishop, this dark square bishop can get maybe into the game. Bishop to d6 can be played by black, so this was a choice maybe here by Ding immediately to play the move e5. But after bishop to g2, Ding comes up now with the most aggressive idea. He plays now tricky knight from f to d7, and the idea about this move is to first of all play maybe knight to e5, or support further the potential e5 move that black is trying to do in order to develop maybe the dark square bishop. Here Gukesh continues with the kingside castling, and now knight to e5, and it seems so that something is already lost here for white, because now this pawn on d3 cannot be protected anymore by the queen. But Gukesh found a brilliant counterattack with queen to f4, which makes this move knight to d3 impossible. Knight from e to d3 is of course not possible because of the pin by the queen against this knight. But if you play knight to d3, then we can play queen to e4. You can also pick up the pawn here on d4. It's not also something that bothers now white. Even if you try e6, then f4, and then it leads into a very complicated line. We can play like this, and here in this scenario again white should be slightly better. So that's why after queen to f4, Ding plays again the correct choice. First of all, rook to d8, protecting now the d4 pawn, and he has still his options to maybe later pick up somehow the pawn on d3. And now, believe me or not, here comes already the first critical moment of the game. Here Gukesh plays an inaccuracy with the move rook to d1, which brings now black really into the game. Here black is already much better. The better choice, let's see first of all what Gukesh should have played, is to play a tricky knight to d2. And now if you play, for instance, knight from c to d3, then b6 can be played. That's now the defensive resource that Gukesh missed now. And then after something like knight to f4, we can pick up this one. Then it leads into this line. You pick up also maybe here the queens. But now you're trying, of course, to compete against this unpleasant pawn. White has to now attack the knight. We pick up now also first of all this knight, and then after knight to d3, white could go into this aggressive line, and after something like rook to c7, rook to b1, the game still is very dynamic, where okay, black took a pawn, but white has now much better activity with both of these rooks, with this bishop, with the knight, and I think it would be a very interesting game. Here after, instead of knight to f4, what you could do is of course play queen to b6. The line that we have now analyzed is knight takes f4, but now after queen to e4 and f4, the game could be very complicated. You can maybe battle with queen to c6, but now queen to e2, and now rook to b1. Again, it's sort of a very interesting game in which white keeps the activity, at least somehow progressive attacks against this b7 pawns. But what Gukesh did, he played now rook to d1, which allowed here Ding to play a very nice move e6. And e6, I'm not sure how Gukesh would come out of this mess, because after e6 and maybe knight to d2 that you can play now, the simple idea is a simple bishop to d6. And look at this, this bishop comes against the queen, this pawn is very weak. You have to now find optimal solutions like knight to e4, but now we can finally pick up this one. You're trying to step back, we pick up this one, we pick up also the knight on e4, queen to e4, and now you pick up another pawn. This was the great choice, I would say, here for Ding. The computer evaluation is almost +1 in black's favor, so this was the way to go here for Ding, and I'm not sure if Gukesh would come out of this. Although these are opposite color bishops, still I would say this is something that maybe Gukesh somehow missed, but you saw he had to see previously really a wild tactic, but now instead of this move e6, Ding makes now a huge mistake. He plays now the move g6 and actually allows here Gukesh to come back into the game. And Gukesh plays now come a4, here knight to d3. If you play again, it's not big deal because of rook to d3, of course. You cannot do it because of this pin by the queen against the knight. So after move a4, Ding plays an aggressive h5. He's trying, of course, now to develop the piece with bishop to h6 and then finally to play kingside castling. After h5, Gukesh finds, I think, the only attacking idea now in order somehow to keep an attack. Gukesh finds the move b6, which is, I think, really great move. After queen to b6, then you can pick up, of course, the knight. So that's why b6 at least creates some madness all over the board. And now after queen to d6, now bishop to a3. So now finally Gukesh keeps the attacking flow. At least he has some kind of an attack that he's preparing now. The bishops are very active. This pawn is still weak. Ding is now far away from castling, from securing the king by castling. So now Ding is simply on the defensive side. And see, again, the evaluation bar is nothing spectacular, but when we watch now the time management, both players have lost now too much time on their clock. Ding about 20 minutes on the clock and Gukesh about 21 minutes on the clock. So now, of course, under time pressure, you could, of course, make huge blunders. First of all, Ding reacts correctly with the move bishop to h6. You cannot again play knight from e to d3. Seems tempting, but it leads into this line. Here we have this one, queen to d6, rook to d6, and now after a couple more moves, we would reach this line in which black finally lost the b7 pawn, and now this pawn is very advanced. So again, if black and white played the game correctly, this should probably draw his position, but Ding didn't want to risk anything with his pass pawn on the b file. So that's why for bishop to a3, Ding plays bishop to h6. We have now bishop to c5, queen to c5, and now queen to e4, simply attacking further here the pawn on b7. We have knight to c6. Ding locks out now the diagonal, and now knight to a3. If we play again queen to b6, then rook from a to b1, very nasty. If you play knight to b4, then knight to c2, continue the pressure, attack against this pawn. Very unpleasant position again here to handle for black. So that's why after knight to a3, rook to d7, Ding first of all protects now the pawn on b7, and now knight to c2, here by Gukesh controlling now also the b4 square. The issue here for Ding is that you cannot play knight to b4. Knight to b4 is simply not possible because of the knight takes b4 and maybe a takes b4. Then a5 is going to happen. We advance the pawn, and finally we have now connected pawns here. A6 in one moment, b7 could happen. So finally the pawns are rolling. This is game over here for black. So that's why after knight to c2, queen takes b6 here by Ding. Gukesh, of course, continues with rook to b1, and again you cannot play knight to b4, which would be a huge mistake. Knight takes b4, a takes b4, queen to e5. We attack against the an attack against the rook. You play kingside castling, but now again a5. You can maybe try, I don't know, to survive this attack, but now after rook to b4, this pawn is hanging, and it's a devastating again position here for black. This bishop is simply out of game. It is developed, but it's not attacking anything. You see, white's light square bishop is much better in this open battle. So now in this line also it's not working. So after rook from a to b1, queen to c7, here by Ding trying to hold on to this position around the square b7, and now rook to b5. Good move here by Gukesh, and now finally in move 24, Ding secures the king by castling. And now comes a tricky moment of this game. The computer doesn't like this move, but who cares about computers? I really love now here the next move by Gukesh Dommaraju. And here he shows that he's trying to somehow squeeze something out of this drawish position. So here the best choice by computers is to play rook to b1, and then after something like queen to c8, the engine suggests that you should reroute the knight here on f3, and then I don't know, to control further the center of the board, and maybe also to control the king side. But I really loved Gukesh's choice more. He played now knight to a1, and he's noticing that there is some problem. There's a problem around the square b7. Here Ding is holding the position, of course, with rook to b8, but now knight to b3, and he's going now for the a5 pawn, for the d4 pawn, and also what's most important thing to say, he's going for the c5 square, where he's further attacking the b7 weakness. And now Ding doesn't react correctly. Here Ding has to now give up somehow the pawn, but he has to do it in the correct way. After something like rook to d6 that he should have played, of course knight to c5 is going to happen, and then after knight to a7 you can go for this pawn. And in this sequence, okay, the materials is about equal. White is slightly better because of this supported pass pawn that is rolling on the c file, but I think again nothing so spectacular is going on the board. But after move e6, here Gukesh had immediately the chance to play a very nice move here, knight to c5. Here knight to c5 that he played continues the pressure against this pawn on b7. We have now rook to e7 by Ding, and here Gukesh could have, pardon me, after rook to e7, here Gukesh can play immediately knight takes b7. Why not? Why shouldn't you take? And then after something like rook to b7, you can of course pick up here first of all the knight on c6, and I think in this sequence again white is much better. You can never pick up this rook because you connect again two passers here, so it's game over, I would say here for black. But after knight to c5 and rook to e7, Gukesh makes now a tiny little mistake with rook to b1, which allows here Ding to close the files with the move knight to b4. But now I'm not sure what happened now in this particular position. Instead of knight to b4 and rook from d to b1, here Ding played queen to c8, which is now completely losing here for Ding, and Gukesh finds now the most important idea. He plays now a powerful queen to c6, and in this particular position Ding Liren, believe me or not, the world champion, resigned. Huge blunder. So as we said, knight to b4 had to be played, keep somehow the game. You can of course pick up the pawn here, but the material would be equal. These are still opposite color bishops. Probably white is better here. Black is hoping to squeeze a draw out of this position, but what happened here to Ding Liren? Queen to c8 and now queen to c6. It was game over. Now Gukesh has the lead in the FIDE World Chess Championship match in 2024. So what the hell happened here? Not sure what happened to Ding now. He played such an awesome opening. He got out of the opening in really good way, and he messed up his whole position. I'm not sure. He lost probably too much time in the beginning, where he calculated for 40 moves, for 40 minutes, one single move. Gukesh time management was, I think, about equal. Also, Gukesh had in one moment a big loss of time when he calculated the position. But I think this has to be seen. Knight to b4, such a natural move. You're getting out of this attack, but Ding somehow tried to hold his lane pawn on b7 and got destroyed tactically with queen to c6. Again, let's see this really crazy moment of the round 11 of the FIDE World Chess Championship match in 2024. So now Gukesh is in the lead. Now the stakes are really high. Things have changed because Ding was in the lead in this event and Gukesh managed to get his draw. We'll see what will happen. Ding has to now play sharper chess if he wants to stay in the game. So far it didn't work out for him with the white pieces. Ding really never complicated things enough. Maybe he has something prepared at home like Gukesh had today. I think this Blumenfeld gambit in the reverse way was a great choice, which spiced up the game in the opening stage. So great win now for the young talented Gukesh Dommaraju in the FIDE World Chess Championship match in 2024. So okay, if you want to see some other great games that we have covered from this event, check out our beautiful games. Here are some links of our analysis, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.